Hey everybody, this is a rare post-edit cut-in by us. We had a little bit of a weird audio recording problem when we did this episode, and while we usually have some sort of audio issue, this one was a little worse than usual. We tried to edit around it as best we could, but there was just only so much we could do. So thank you for your understanding, and on with the episode.
Hello, fellow scholars and purveyors of morbid curiosities alike. I'm Dr. Caleb, joined by the living relic himself, Dr. Zach, and this is SCPod. Zach, how are you today?
Here. Less sober than I was when we recorded last time.
I have very good news for you and the audience. I've kicked my amnestics addiction.
No, you haven't.
I have. I just now I drink a lot.
What do you think's in the? What do you think?
It's cheaper
What do you think
that
you're
way.
drinking?
Is it Leviathan slime?
It's Leviathan slime.
Oh no. Well, I guess no horsing around, no dinosauring around this week. I suppose we just get right into it, huh?
Jump in.
The more we dwell in the fragments of reality, the longer that fiction starts to seem more suitable to what we're doing.
Yep.
All right, this week we are covering SCP-250, also known as most of an Allosaurus,
Not the whole Allosaurus.
but most of an Aslosaurus.
Most of an asshole.
Object class, Euclid. Special containment procedures are as follows. SCP-250 is to be kept in a 50 meter by 50 meter enclosure simulating a prairie environment, with padded steel walls 15 meters high and 1 meter thick. The temperature must remain between 20 and 28 degrees Celsius by day and between 10 and 14 degrees Celsius by night, with an average humidity of no more than 8%. This serves the dual purpose of ensuring that SCP-250's overall behavior remains predictable and of maintaining the physical integrity of its component parts. Vegetation within the enclosure is to be maintained on a weekly basis. See document 250-MB48 for details. In case you are wondering, that document is nowhere to be found.
Nope. Be checked.
Although SCP-250 does not physically require nutrition, it is to be fed one live adult pig every two days in order to regulate its aggression and hunting
We
instincts.
didn't check.
The remnants of its meal are to be removed from its enclosure no less than one hour after the onset of its nightly dormancy period. This includes cleaning any residual biological debris from SCP-250's physical components with compressed air and whisk brooms. At no point during cleaning are any of SCP-250's physical components to be moved by more than 1 meter in any direction, as this risks disrupting its dormancy. Dormancy ends within 5 minutes of sunrise. Access to SCP-250's containment during its activity period is prohibited.
Description. SCP-250 is the animate fossil skeleton of an allosaur, originally identified as Allosaurus fragilis. However, an incomplete scientific article found in the personal effects of paleontologist Dr. indicates that this classification may have been erroneous. It consists of 153 disarticulated bones and 14 plaster and fiberglass replacements, held together and animated by an unknown force. Study of this force is hindered by SCP-250's aggressive behavior, which has been assessed by Foundation paleozoologists as being well within the theoretical norms of an Allosaurus. SCP-250 emulates what are presumed to have been the standard daily activities of a living Allosaurus. It wanders its enclosure by day and enters a state of dormancy by night, and will attempt to kill and devour anything it perceives as suitable prey, including humans. Its lack of organs does not seem to affect its behavior in any way, except in that the remains of any prey it consumes inevitably fall out of the gaps in its skull, neck, and ribcage, at which point it ignores them. SCP-250 was first excavated as an 80% complete skeleton in 19. Records from the excavation do not include any report of anomalies. In 19, it was transferred to the where it was assembled, mounted, and put on display. At some point in the 21st century, SCP-250 seized and killed an intruder to the museum, although damage to the intruder's remains was so extensive as to render forensic identification impractical. They were conclusively shown to not be those of Dr. whose office in the museum was extensively vandalized that night and who has not been seen since. Foundation personnel embedded within museum staff reported the incident, and SCP-250 was taken into custody. So we can all agree that the Doctor definitely did this himself, right?
Do you think he staged the break-in, or that he made the skeleton?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that we do have a sender thing on our hands, which I know is a red flag.
No.
Everybody take a shot when we mention Tyler. But I definitely think the Doctor had something to do with this. Necromancy is a word that comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't even think this is a Tyler situation. I think this is pretty cut and dry, that this Doctor is at once a couple of things. One, he is a paleozoologist. Second, he is a necromancer. And three, he's a dirty thief.
Well, okay. So here's my thing is, I don't think that he staged the break-in, because it did note that it killed the guy. Mm-hmm. Now, there could have been a second guy, My lord, an Allosaurus has hit the second guy.
Mr. President, there's been a second Allosaurus.
But I do think that there's something up with the Doctor, at least in terms of reanimating this skeleton. Now, I do think it is really fun that just like I forget which Harold Holt it was, but it was the one that was a skeleton that was animated. It's almost just done in a way that you can't even describe it. Mm-hmm. It's like they're held together and animated by an unknown force. What is that force?
The Harold Force.
Science won't tell you. It's holiday spirit.
Held together by Christmas cheer.
I have a fun fact for you, Zach. Allosaurus. The comments will roast me alive if I'm wrong, but I'm willing to try and regurgitate this information.
Caleb,
because I'm pretty sure I remember it being right.
I'll roast you alive if you're right.
Allosaurus is or was the most widely spread predator on the face of the planet ever.
And if anyone wants to fact check that, I will send you Dr. Caleb's personal address.
I'm pretty sure I remember reading somewhere that Allosaurus was so widely proliferated that it was on every single continent of modern day world.
World.
Back then it was Pangea. Modern day world. But there were so many Allosauruses. They were just the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or they were the most successful killers of all time. I can't remember. But anyway, Allosaurus is a cool dude.
Comments. Go ahead and roast him alive if he is wrong.
I could tell you a whole bunch of fun facts about Allosaurus, about how they don't like to bite. They slam their skull down to incapacitate things. But I think that ruins the fun of it. I think the fun of this article comes from the fact that when it eats it literally has a whole. It literally just spills everything that it eats out all over itself.
Yeah, it's like
and then they have to go in and clean it.
it's like what my dogs used to do.
Exactly. And I don't know. Do we want to talk about Night at the Museum?
I feel like that's kind of the easy way out. If I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I guess like one thing I would ask is, why do you think they would have broken into his office? Do you think there's never been a follow-up investigation?
I feel like if it was SCP Foundation personnel, they would have noted as such. I think that it's just like a museum. Well, okay. It's interesting because his office was vandalized. Because surface level, museum has invaluable exhibits and things like that, and so like, you know, it wouldn't be the first time that a crook breaks into a museum, steals a bunch of shit, and then runs off, right? But because they vandalized the office, I think somebody was on to the doctor, or thought that the doctor was up to something, but wasn't sure what. So when the doctor's guard dog, Allosaurus, attacked, the guy wasn't fucking prepared for it. Gardosaurus.
Right. Because like I read this and it has all the hallmarks of an SCP that should link to another SCP or article or something like that, but it doesn't.
No, this is just a blip on the radar. And I mean, at the end of the day, what we're dealing with here is a skeleton of a dinosaur that acts like a dinosaur. Like,
you know
all the backstory aside.
You know what it feels like, though? It feels like when last season we were talking about Blood Brother. Like, if we had just talked about the monster instead of like the village or the castle or the lab. But like, you don't have any of that context, and so I feel like there's definitely other things happening in the periphery of 250 that is just not been fully investigated for whatever reasons. Probably budgetary.
Let's be honest.
And so I feel like we may only be getting maybe a half or a third of a story here, because we don't know why this Allosaurus animated. We don't know where the doctor went or if he's still alive. All we know is that when the Allosaurus was initially found, it wasn't observed to be capable of this. The break-in happens, the doctor disappears, and then it animates.
Well, yeah, and that's the other weird thing about it is there's definitely to go back to our roots here. I don't think the SCP is necessarily that there's a walking, talking Allosaurus. I think it's whatever brought it to life, because, you know, just going over some key points here, the SCP was first excavated as an 80% complete skeleton back in the 1900s. And then it took until the 2000s before it became animated. And now it animates every single night. Or day? I don't know. What's our consensus on that? Does it animate during the day or at night?
It looks like it animates during the day and goes dormant at night. But I also want to point out that we only have the area. We don't have the volume of its enclosure. And it doesn't say if it's outside, because if you look at the top of the procedures, it says kept in a 50 meter by 50 meter enclosure simulating a prairie environment. So we don't even know if it's kept indoors or outdoors, or how high that perimeter goes. So I feel like there's definitely more questions, and I don't even necessarily know if being indoors or outdoors would make it a huge deal. It's just kind of weird that's excluded.
For sure. I mean, it does say that dormancy ends within 5 minutes of sunrise, which is a pretty arbitrary like time frame. It's like maybe it's a simulated sunrise, or maybe it is like it feels the sun on its bones, and it animates.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
Um,
like I would want to know if that's something like if it's not directly observed by the sun or like outside in any way, like where you couldn't tell what time it is outside, if that would affect the clock at all.
right, right. Um, One thing I also want to bring up is the title of this SCP. Most of an Allosaurus, like
Hmm.
yes, by definition, it is most of the complete Allosaurus skeleton. But uh, first of all, an 80% complete skeleton found is like exceedingly rare.
Yeah, it's
Like
pretty good.
usually you find like a bone or two, and then you do like fiberglass for the rest. For this to
Hmm.
be 153 disarticulated bones and 14 plaster and fiberglass replacements, that is insane.
Yeah, and one other quote unquote bone I have to pick here is that its behavior
Huh.
is matched with what we theorize their behavior to be like, but we obviously can't prove that's true. All I'm saying is that if it was reanimated by a paleozoological necromancer, that would make sense because it would be what they think an Allosaurus would act like.
Right.
But I mean, we don't know if that's what an Allosaurus would actually be like.
What if the necromancer just wanted a pet Allosaurus?
But then why he didn't take it with him?
Because he couldn't control it.
Maybe. I mean, that's a good point.
Um yeah. That's an interesting thing. What like were you a dinosaur kid growing up?
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
Um, I'm recovering from a sinus infection, so I can't really say it without like choking on phlegm. But the little compagnosaurus, the little
Oh,
bastards that eat the
compies.
girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little bastards that eat the little girl at the beginning of Jurassic World 2 or Jurassic Park 2.
Compsognathus, I think is the name of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the one.
I think we talked about
Yeah,
this off the pod a few times, but yeah, it's Compsognathus is a cool, and I love its depiction in Jurassic Park.
they're just like little vermin. I love them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that literally like after watching Jurassic Park 2, it gave me a new perspective on video games too, because I was like, oh, like all these little guys, they can't mean anything, and then they get up into a group, playing Halo, and you have like 40 grunts attacking you, and you're like, oh, these guys are nothing, and then you start to respect them a lot more when they're in numbers.
Yeah, like the flood.
Exactly, exactly. Mine's my favorite dinosaur is a little bit basic, also because of Jurassic Park, but it's the Spinosaurus. Um, but I love all the breakthroughs in scientific research with it. Like, was it a water based guy? Was he
It
a
is.
fishy kind of guy? Like all the
It
other stuff,
is.
and then like all of the after they found Spinosaurus and they finally started to because they only had one skeleton and then it was blown up. I think during World War II, but
Hmm.
then they found more skeletons and they were like, wait, what about the irritator? The irritator is a Spinosaurus, but it's native to a different area. Or like Baryonyx is kind of a Spinosaur. Anyway, it's a whole thing I won't nerd
Hmm.
out on. Second favorite is Therizinosaurus. So there's your I was a dinosaur
Yeah.
kid and know a lot about dinosaurs.
There is no source is fun.
Yeah. I mean, now he's a Jurassic
Um,
Park guy too, so it's kind of less cool,
fun
but
fun fact
yeah.
about Therizinosaurus is that it was one of the dinosaurs included in the first Dino Crisis game. But at the time
Oh,
of its inclusion, they thought it was a carnivore because of the giant fucking claws.
right.
Um, but it's a herbivore
Yep, yep.
with giant fucking claws. Like
With
kind of a
giant
ground
fucking
sloth,
claws.
kind of a ground sloth situation, really.
Yeah, yeah. I have this very vivid memory of reading a dinosaur book and seeing like an artist rendering of a Therizinosaurus fighting a theropod. and just like bitch slapping this theropod with his fucking meaty claws. Good times. I miss being a dinosaur kid.
Hashtag giant fucking claws.
I think we talked about this a little bit before we hit record, but there's not a lot to say about SCP-250. I mean, it raises more questions than answers.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I feel like there's something very interesting happening off camera, but like the entire time.
You can tell this is an early SCP just because like we're honing in on the outrageous aspect of like there's a walking, talking dinosaur, and less on like there's a necromancer who's just bringing dinosaurs to life.
And we have no idea where he is.
Yeah, for all we know, this could be the Blood Brother guy.
This could be the Blood Brother guy. We wouldn't know. How would we check?
Or Blood of the Dragon. We got to remember that. The SCP was called Blood of the Dragon. We misnamed it. And and then the researcher reached out to us and said, "What the fuck? No, he was actually really nice."
Yeah, and that was super cool, and we appreciated it. But we had like a weird Mandela effect that happened in the middle of recording that.
Yeah.
But again, thanks for dropping by saying hi, Doc. But yeah, with 250, it feels like I kind of brought it up earlier, where it feels like that same thing. If only we talked about the monster and nothing else surrounding it, because I feel like just as someone else who read that after the fact, the monster of that article is almost not necessarily like miscellaneous to the article itself, but it's definitely not the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like if we had just tried to do a whole article on the monster, we probably would have ended up something very similar to this.
Well, let me ask you, which do you prefer? Do you prefer it to be like the more zoomed out monster flick where we're finding out its motives and its a superhero origin story and stuff like that? Or do you prefer it to be very ambiguous and we're just focusing on like, hey, there's a guy here?
Well, there's a couple of things I think the way I kind of look at it is my personal preference is that I like the SCPs that make me ask questions more than the ones that just come out and tell me.
Right.
Because you can't really unanswer a question, especially for Euclids, because I feel like with Euclids a lot of it is unknown. But for me, a lot of the pleasure comes from just that process of, so how does that work? What does that mean? Or does this imply to this? And at least for me, and like my personal preference, I don't do that out of like a sense of trying to sabotage the work of fellow researchers, but more of a case of like it's how I engage with the material.
Yeah, no, I think, being researchers and everything, we're conditioned to ask why or how or what a lot of times, and I think that this SCP gives you just the right amount of breadcrumbs to like ask your own questions about it, without outright telling you and spoil, because we're left to speculate. We're left to we have no idea even if this doctor was a necromancer. Maybe the bones were magic.
Maybe the bones were magic, but I mean, if that was true, then why didn't it animate sooner?
Exactly. So, there's a lot that we don't know, but it leads to more fun discussion around it because we're like, oh, what is going on here? We love that there's just a dinosaur that eats a pig or something, and then it just the remnants of the pig just spill out all over the place, and they have to go in and clean it every single night.
Right?
But
2 words: fire hose.
Exactly. Oh man. But yeah, I love this. This is a fun one. And this is one I brought up because this is one I have a lot of intimate knowledge with. I have a lot of intimate knowledge with skeletons. So let's just say I've got a bone to pick with them.
What he means to say is that he definitely fucked a skeleton.
Haven't we all?
No. We have not. Dr. Caleb, I got nothing.
Yeah, I'm still coming down from the thought of skeletons. Yeah, you don't got anything else to add to this one?
I really don't.
Yeah, I like this one. I think he's a cool dude. But there's, like I said, there's a lot of questions that we can ask, and at the end of the day, we can come up with the nail theory, as we've kind of coined it, where we kind of try to figure out the bigger picture. But we also want to hear what other people have to think. Leave your comments on what you think brought the skeleton to life, or just tell us what your favorite dinosaur is. I don't think people are asked that enough nowadays. And I ask people, and they're like, Velociraptor, and I'm like, you suck. Find a better dinosaur.
Right? Wrong.
A dinosaur in Jurassic Park is not a Velociraptor. It's a Utah Raptor, right? That's my co-host, folks. Zach, where can they find you?
They can find me over at my writing blog, Roll for Writing, which is at www.makeawritingcheck.blogspot.com. Is updated twice a month. They can also find me over on Roll for Writing Presents on YouTube. They can also find my ebook available wherever it is people buy ebooks, Tales from Port Astor.
Awesome. And if you ever find Zach in the street, ask him what his favorite dinosaur is. It's his favorite question.
I will attack you.
The second to who's your favorite domestic terrorist?
That's a hard one, actually.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Calica, KALICKA1738 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on YouTube at Calica, or Calica Plays on Twitch. All of those are pretty cobwebby, and I don't update them ever, if ever. So if you like what I do here on the podcast, keep listening, because it's the best way you're going to find more content from me. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at SCPod_cast. Follow us on Instagram at SCPod.cast. We're available on Spotify and YouTube, and I say this, I've promised multiple different things with this, but I am working on spreading our content out a little bit and delving into more things. Short form content, text posts, even we have ideas of grandeur when it comes to like doing live streams and stuff like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I say this at the end of every episode, and like I said last time, it is not pre-recorded. I do this all off the cuff. Please remember to subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you're listening to it. That really tells Spotify and YouTube that we have content that you want to come back for, and you'll get notified for our new content. Please remember to rate or like or dislike wherever you're listening as well. And give us feedback. Tell us in the comments what you hate, what you like. If we're rambling too much, if we said the word fuck a few too many times for your taste. I promise I won't listen to that one. And finally, share it with people that you know that might like SCPs. I do check in with people that do like SCPs, and apparently we're making content that people somewhat enjoy, at least. So your weirdo friend that wears a trench coat to school and told you about Daughter of the Scarlet King and scarred you for an eternity, he might like us. You never know. Maybe it'll get him off your back. But that's all we got. Zach, what are we doing next week?
I don't know. I need to find the file still. I'll let you know.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at post orders right now, and we just have 5 question marks next to our names.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, we are coming out with an episode. It's just we'll find out what that is. Interesting and ominous. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Zach, I can slowly see you fossilize before my very eyes. What's going on?
Everybody stay tuned for the reproductive methods of bony fish.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.